Hello and welcome to another episode of the Champions United podcast. This is your host Pranav Shahaney, and today I'm joined by two guests. Karan Advani, he's been on the show for the longest, joins us, and also Satamitra Ghosh, who's been on the show for the second longest. So I think both of them are now competing for who's going to be the best guest on the show. And today it's going to be a little different. It's going to be we're going to talk about United players, but we're also going to talk about the Euros. And we've seen a lot of surprises, but mainly we've seen most of the teams we expected to go through. Obviously, there have been some upsets on the way, but generally it's been pretty smooth sailing for the teams we thought that would go through the knockout rounds. And when it comes to United players, there have been some good players. There have been some bad players. Unfortunately, Dean Henderson missed out due to an injury. Donny van de Beek also missed out through an injury. And then Harry Maguire for the first two games wasn't available, and then he came and he did really well in the final group game. So we today we'll generally be discussing the permutations for the competition, but also the impact United players have had in taking their nations through to the knockout rounds. And while some have got knocked out, like Scott McTominay, we'll focus on why that happened and how important or not important has he been to Scotland's failures in this tournament. So we'll start with you, Shorts. What have you made of England's performances, and what have you made of Harry Maguire when he came in the final game against Czech Republic? Because he played that defense splitting pass that led to a really good goal scoring chance, and we also saw that when he was at the back, marshalling the defense, they looked a more composed and a more solid team. So, what do you think about what he brought to the team, and do you see him starting for the next game?
So I do hope that he starts for the Indian game, like for the knockouts, because he brings a lot of class to the back line for England, as well as a lot of stability. And you can see how robust he is at the back. Although England have not been challenged a lot in terms of say, in goal threats, in terms of goal threats from the group that they have come through, and they were like the formation that the he has played, Southgate has played, has been quite decent. Mings, Stones, Ben White, everyone who has been called upon, they have performed well. But Maguire is someone who brings in the X factor in the defense, as well as adds more robustness to it, as well as he can bring the ball up a little better than his other compatriots, and he has been doing the same for United as well. And talking about England, all of their performances have been a little underwhelming, and Southgate has surprised a lot of us. Like for a team like England, no one can satisfy the fans in terms of what transpires on the pitch, unless and until they go out and flourish with a 5-0, 6-0 goals. No one will be happy. But I do think Maguire is a very crucial element. Uh, I say he will also add to a lot of uh, say ingredient to England's success. So that is very very important.
Absolutely, you made a really good point about ball progression, because we've seen the England centre backs not do that enough in the last two games. And Karan, what did you make of Maguire's performance? He played obviously 90 minutes. Stones was the one, in fact, who was brought off in the 75th minute, and Tyrone Mings came in for him. So, what do you think about Maguire with Stones, Maguire with Ings, and what do you see happening with England in the coming game against Germany? Do you see Maguire having a huge impact, or do you think the Germans are going to bully the England defenders?
Well, for starters, I feel Maguire hands down is the best centre back for club and country, and he's been a pillar for us at United, and he's definitely been England's best centre back over the past couple of years. So when we speak about combinations and starting in defense, you think of Harry Maguire and the next defender. So he's somebody who's definitely going to be starting every game for England now. We don't know whether that run is going to end on the 29th against Germany, or they might progress further. But all the games that are remaining, I expect Maguire to be starting for them and excelling at them. Quite frankly, I believe I mentioned it at the previous podcast as well, that Maguire, after he comes back from injury, he is going to be one of the players who needs to be looked at like from a tournament standpoint. Because he's someone who plays with Shaw at the club level on a weekly basis. He has the connect with him, so he can play the passes to Shaw to progress the ball. Uh, Along with that, I believe in the last game he had the most progressive passes into the final third for any England player, which is remarkable considering there were players like Grealish, Saka, Calvin Phillips who does it regularly for Leeds. Uh, so for Maguire to do that from centre back, it's something that's really unparalleled for England, and yeah, his importance cannot be like undermined in any way or form.
Absolutely. I mean, he does bring that difference whenever he's on the pitch, both on and off the ball, and he's good in the air, and he's a good communicator as well. So you can see that on the pitch when England looked like a much better team, and so do United. When he wasn't there for the Europa League final, you saw that how badly the United defense looked, and they were all over the place. So I think that he's a really important player. And Karan, sticking with you, Marcus Rashford, we had a talk about him before the tournament began, and we weren't really sure whether he should start or not. You said that if Harry Kane was going to play a sort of deepish center forward role, that maybe you'll need Rashford to make those runs in behind him. But obviously Rashford hasn't. I mean, Southgate hasn't seen Rashford in the same way, and he's not started him in any of his three games, and he's always come off the bench, and he's not really impressed whenever he's done that. There was one game where he played down the middle, and I don't think he even got maybe 5 or 6 touches of the ball. When he played on the left, he looked like he was just isolated and he wasn't being able to get in the game. So, how have you seen Rashford fare this tournament, and do you see him play more of a role if England beat Germany or maybe even in the Germany game?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, everything depended on how Harry Kane was going to turn up for England, and I believe he has come up with his Spurs version, where he's coming in deep and he's trying to pull the strings from midfield and find his runners. So I feel Rashford is someone. It's such a tricky situation because if Mason Mount is fit, he's hands down England's best centre midfielder, and Jack Grealish, in my opinion, is one of the best players in the Premier League. Is somebody who has this creative spark. So it's very tricky to bench either of them, and you'd really be making it worse for the team if you play Rashford on the left, Grealish on the right, and Mount in his natural position. So it's difficult to fit Grealish and Rashford into the team, but I really don't understand why Harry Kane isn't playing like a proper number 9 because he's not getting his goals. Raheem Sterling is England's top goal scorer. He scored the only goals England have scored this tournament. So Kane really needs to push forward. And if you are playing Kane a little deeper, then there's really no other goal threat other than Raheem Sterling because Grealish is not exactly an out and out attacking player who's going to be scoring you a lot of goals. So it's just, from a balance standpoint, if you're playing Kane in this current role, Rashford needs to start in some way. But if you can get Kane further forward, like I said, England are going to be a team to watch.
I mean, Rashford starting might be a little tricky because you've seen Sterling score both the goals, and then you've seen Saka start the last game and do really well. So dropping him will be difficult, and then you've seen Grealish pull the string, so then dropping him will also be difficult. So, short, do you see Rashford maybe playing any sort of role in the next game? Because I think whenever he's come off the bench, he's not really done anything that makes me feel that okay, he's going to bring something different to this team. And maybe if England are not able to break Germany down, do you think he'll be the man who Southgate sends on, or do you see him send someone like a Calvert Lewin or maybe anyone else who can bring something different to the team?
Right. So against Germany, Germany's wing backs go up really, up high the pitch. So there is a vulnerability that England can exploit with pace down the flanks. But that being said, I truly think that Southgate will actually try to have a three-man midfield behind Kane. Uh, Even in fact, play a two striker system with Sterling and Kane over there. might possibly do that by Sterling, drifting around and Kane being there on his own. The three. Why do I propose a three-man midfield over there? Is because Saka, Grealish, and Mount, or you can have Sancho as well. Although Sancho is not playing at the moment, all three of them can have a lot of energy on the ball, and they can drag a lot of say players and carry the ball forward. With them having a pivot of Phillips as well as Rice doing the dirty work behind them. But when I suppose if Rashford is to come into the play, he will be coming in as a substitute and to exploit the weaknesses behind the wing backs with his pace exploited, and also the run at the center, like the center backs, because there is a little bit of fragility in say in German's defenses, as Hungary also showcased a few days back. So him being an impact substitute can be a possibility, but let's see what transpires, because I'm not sure how Southgate will be preparing his team for this.
Absolutely, and it's also worth noting that Rashford has been playing with a shoulder injury, and he's going to make a decision
Yes.
before the season starts whether he's going to have surgery on it. So maybe that's probably holding him back, because we've seen Rashford, the kind of player he's been for United, especially in the first half of the season. And if on performances of the season, he would probably start ahead of Sterling. But I think he's not done enough, and Sterling has done enough. He's been scoring the goals, so it's hard to make a case to drop Sterling for Rashford. And now coming to Luke Shaw, what have you guys made of his performance? He didn't play obviously the first game, but then he came back in the next game and he really did well. So at the start of the Euros, we thought, okay, Luke Shaw is going to be a nailed-on starter, but that's not what had happened. And there are even talks of Luke Shaw now of England playing a back three, so we're going to have two wing backs. So do you think that Luke Shaw will start the next game? Firstly, what have you guys made of this tournament so far? Do you think he'll start the next game, or do you think that Ben Chilwell is more suited to playing that left wing back role? Short, what do you think?
So Luke Shaw has been one of the better players for us. Definitely one of the best left back in the world. Uh, when you're looking at say in the Euros, he has created the most chances out of any player in England squad, despite him playing only twice.
Yeah.
Now, when you're looking at the say the say kind of team that Southgate might be proposing or would be thinking of putting on the pitch, uh, if he does not have Luke Shaw, that would be a little bit difficult for him, like for the team to manage the wingback situation from a Germany's perspective, because you'll have Kimmich who will be drifting out. You have Gosens who's in extremely good form at the moment. If you don't have a good say wingback who can actually play around with say the midfield a little bit, can progress the balls, can create chances as well as be robust, I don't think it will be a easy task for England to manage Germany. So I hope he like Southgate goes in with Luke Shaw, because that he is going to be really good when he is competing against Germany. Plus he'll be adding a little bit more flavor when going ahead as well.
Absolutely, and if you just consider the defensive impact, Luke Shaw can obviously be a better player than Chilwell. And even if Southgate wants to, have that attacking fullback, Luke Shaw can play as a left centre back because he's a left-footed player, and in my opinion, he's a better player to have there than Tyrone Mings, because he can obviously drift out and cover that fullback space also when Chilwell is
True.
gone forward. So
Plus his
currently, yeah,
coverage is a little bit more in
absolutely,
terms of say the kind of heat mapping that he does
yeah.
throughout the game.
Absolutely. So, Karan, what do you see? Do you see Shaw start as a wing back? Do you see him start as a left centre back? Or do you see Southgate stick with a back four and Shaw playing as a left back?
Uh, Southgate has a couple of options. If he intends on having Trippier starting at left wing back, for example, then he might consider playing Shaw or Mings as the left centre back. But personally, I would definitely prefer Shaw starting because he, in my opinion, is England's best left back. And even if he was deployed in the left wing back position, he would not be putting in poor performances in any way or form. So he'd be a really good asset to have. So he definitely starts. But if you're playing a back three, then it's tempting because you could make a case for Tyrone Mings because he's been pretty solid over the two games which he's played, both clean sheets. So you could start him at left centre back, or perhaps you could be tempted to maybe give Ben White a chance to play in a three back because he does it week in and week out for Brighton. So yeah, it's a good headache to have for Southgate, but then let's just see what's in his mind.
Absolutely, and that's done with the England players. We would obviously speak about Dean Henderson, but he just pulled out of the squad because of an injury. And even if he hadn't, I don't think he would have probably played any games. Which is the same we can say about David De Gea because he's been in the England squad, but he's been relegated to second and third choice because Unai Simon has played all three games. So what have you guys seen about De Gea? Do you think that Spain would be better with him in goal, or do you think that Simon is the right man? And also, what do you guys think about De Gea's future? Do you guys see him leave this summer? Because obviously Romero has gone. He's been linked to Everton, and we all got Tom Heaton in. We are getting Tom Heaton in. So do you guys see De Gea stay put and be in first or second choice for us next season, or do you think that this is the right time we cash in on him? Karan, you've been a vocal critic about De Gea for the past 2 or 3 years. So what have you made of his performances in the last 6 months? And do you think that he's going to stay at the club beyond this summer?
I do think that De Gea is going to end up staying at the club because I don't believe there is any club in Europe that would want a premium keeper at his wages after paying a transfer fee. We'd have to do something in the lines of what we did with Alexis Sanchez, which isn't healthy for any financial business. It's never going to be healthy for the balance sheet. But yeah, I see De Gea staying at the club. But speaking of his performance over the last 6 months, it's fair to say that he's been declining on an annual basis for the past few years now. Like especially after his peak season, where we finished second under Jose. So he's definitely been declining. And speaking of Spain, Unai Simon and Rob Sanchez are hands down better shot stoppers than David De Gea in 2021. I would not say that maybe 5 years ago, but as of today, I definitely rate Simon and Rob Sanchez over De Gea. So Enrique seems to be doing the right thing by benching.
That's a good point because in 3 games in the Euro, Spain have just conceded one goal, and that's been to Poland, and that's been to arguably the best striker in the world, Robert Lewandowski. So, Satamitra, do you see that? Do you think that that's the right choice, or do you think De Gea would have probably kept all three clean sheets like Pickford did, or do you think Unai Simon is better than De Gea in terms of today and as well as the future? Because I think Luis Enrique sees him as a long term number one. So do you think that he's made the right call benching someone with the international and domestic experience like De Gea, or do you think he should have played him in goal for the Euros?
See, Dea, as Karan mentioned, Dea has been declining. His performances have not been up to scratch. Even in the World Cup, also, you saw him. He wasn't in the zone. He was a little porous. Considering what like how his say tally of clean sheets have been like, as well as how he how things have transpired at the international level as well. And as you mentioned, Pranav, Enrique is looking to the future as well. Unai Simon definitely should be Spain's number one. I'm not discounting De Gea in any manner, but I haven't seen a spark in at least the international stage, on the international stage, to consider that he should be their number one. Unai Simon has been decently, doing decently for Spain itself. Uh, Keeping clean sheets, I suppose I wouldn't mind Dea being there, say, like giving him some time if Spain would have qualified already. but that wasn't the case. So Enrique is going with a foolproof plan for the future, as well as whatever like he has seen up till to the build up of the Euro as well.
Definitely. And now speaking about Bruno Fernandes, he's been our best player since he's joined. But in terms of his performances for his country, he doesn't really look like the world class player he's been at United. And that's obviously reflected in his performances. He started the first game against Hungary. I think he did decently, but again, it's Hungary, and Portugal just cruised past that game 1-3-0. Then the next game, when it was the first tough challenge of the tournament against Germany, obviously Portugal lost 4-2, but Bruno was nowhere to be seen in that game, and rightfully so. In my opinion, he was subbed off in the 64th minute, and then in the final game of the group stage against France, he didn't even start the game. He was brought off in the 72nd minute, and I don't think after coming on he had that sort of an impact that the coach thought he would. So I know it's hard as United fans to criticize him, but in my opinion, I think he's had a horrible tournament, at least in terms of the standards we've set of him. How have you guys seen his tournament so far, and do you think that he'll be starting in the next game? Because in my opinion, I don't think he should start the next game. Karan, what do you think about his performances so far?
I personally think he's had a really underwhelming Euro 2020 because he's definitely burnt out. He's played 84 games in the past calendar year, which is roughly a game every 4.5 days, which is ridiculous in every sense. It's something that no human has to go through because it's tiring, it's tedious, it's mentally taxing. So I'm not shocked at how he's been playing, but it's also disappointing to know that he fails to make an impact in a dead game. Like when we talk about games like Hungary where they were defending in a low block, we saw how Renato Sanchez had a hand in all three goals in some way because
Yeah,
he
yeah.
kept linking with Rafa Silva, he kept linking with Ronaldo, with Andre Silva, who came in the end. So Renato Sanchez, on the other hand, has been somebody who might not be contributing directly through goals and assists, but he's been having those moments where he's taking on a couple of defenders, he's being bold, he's making the smart pass, he's being progressive, and his possession value over the past 3 games has been amongst the best in the Euros, with like the likes of Toni Kroos and Paul Pogba, which is some group to be in. So Renato Sanchez definitely has to be starting over Bruno. It hurts for sure, but at some point we need to accept that Bruno isn't going to be putting in world class performances with the schedule he's had over the past year.
That's interesting you speak about the number of games he's played because I feel that Fernando Santos has given him a chance in the past, and much like the Euros, he's not been able to fit into that system. Maybe United system is so built around him that he gets the ball in those dangerous situations and he can play those killer passes. So do you think it's down to Bruno, it's down to the system, or it's down to how just Fernando Santos wants to build his team around, say, someone like Ronaldo instead of Bruno, like how United do?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that regardless of what Bruno achieves at the club level, the focus is never going to be on him when he's playing for his country. Because when you talk about somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo, who's arguably one of the greatest players to ever play the sport, so not even arguable, actually, it's a fact at this point. So the focus is never going to be on Bruno. And when we speak about the creative prowess of Portugal as a team, you have players like João Moutinho, like Ruben Neves, you have Bernardo Silva, you have Renato Sanchez, you have Rafa Silva, you have Diego Jota, there are João Felix. So there are so many players that can like provide the service Ronaldo requires to thrive. So Bruno is never going to be the player who is going to make the impact and be expected to make an impact every game. So in terms of focal point, he's never going to be the star. But yeah, I agree with you when you say that Bruno hasn't really turned up for Portugal throughout his career. So it could be down to system, but it also could be down to, maybe currently might be down to fatigue. And I don't know, maybe he likes things to go through him. which he isn't getting at Portugal.
Yeah, even I think it's something to do with that. And Shots, what do you think? Do you think Bruno needs to do better himself, or do you think he's trying the best he can and it's just the system that's not suited for him?
I think the way in the position that he's playing in, he's not very comfortable in. Although, yes, as Karan mentioned, he has been fatigued a lot because he's been playing so many games, and because of that workload, since the past 12 months, it's no surprise that he's been, a little patchy and dodgy. But if you're looking at the team itself, like if say Portugal has to bring out the best in Bruno, he should be given a much more advanced position to actually play in. So you can have Renato Sanchez also in to help him out, because there was no one to actually drop deep and get the ball out of Portugal's midfield itself. Not playing the double pivot, but actually thinking of Danilo as a person who can do the dirty work on his own and then pass it forward, or else you can have Ruben Neves as well, who can do the dirty work and carry the ball forward as well. So if you have Renato Sanchez and Bruno playing in tandem, Renato Sanchez can also get the ball ahead, bring a lot more energy. Bruno can try and give a lot more attacking balls, spraying the balls like he does for United itself, and create chances. Then you can have Jota, Ronaldo, as well as say Bernardo Silva going inside as well, rather than just banking on say them in clicking or getting, like if you've seen Portugal's game also, Ronaldo was coming back a lot. So if you give him say Renato Sanchez and a little more freedom in the central position, there will be a change in how he is performing for say Portugal.
That's really interesting because and now we'll speak about we've spoken about Bruno, a player who does well for club and not for country. Now let's speak about Pogba, who always does well for his country at international tournaments and seldom does puts in those kind of performances for his club, because I think he had an amazing World Cup. He had an amazing World Cup even before that in 2014, and now he's, in my opinion, been one of France's players of the tournament. He started the tournament really well. Then in the next game against Hungary, he was a bit quiet. But then again against Portugal, you saw that he did really well and he provided an assist for a goal. So, Karan, what do you think about Pogba's performances thus far in this Euros? Because I think he's been United's player of the tournament at the Euros. He's been one of France's, or if not the best France player at the tournament. And if France had to go on and win the tournament, I think he's going to play another huge role, maybe get a few assists, but just generally have that kind of domineering midfield presence that we've seen him achieve at France and before that at Juventus for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. That's been missing at United. So, where do you think he's playing differently for France, and just generally, how do you think he's impacted this France side?
Yeah, Pogba has been absolutely phenomenal these Euros. He's pulled the strings from midfield. He's ensured that the likes of Griezmann, Benzema, Mbappe have always had the ball in between the lines, like behind the defenses to run onto. He's been flawless. Like you mentioned, he had a quiet game against Hungary, but that's not something that we could define him by, because both the big games that he's played, he's bossed both of them. So yeah, he's had a great tournament. But like we've had this discussion so many times, like Pogba of Man United versus Pogba of France. Speaking of that, I think Pogba had a great season this season. He played really well. He was consistent when he was put in to an advanced role. Uh, so yeah, he definitely gets better when the players in and around him are better, and he doesn't have to work as hard defensively. So he does thrive in those situations, and he's definitely helped uh, with the likes of Kante sitting beside him. I believe they are undefeated together, like in 30 games, which
Yeah.
is a really good stat to have. So they balance each other out well, and he's been missing that at United, because we have Fred that has a tendency to overcommit and leave space in behind, and we have somebody like McTominay, who isn't the most positionally aware player, like when you compare him to the best defensive midfielders in Europe. So yeah, he misses that at United. And to talk about your claim of him being United's best player at the Euros, I believe Dan James would have something to say about that because he would be my pick. He's created the most chances from open play, which is amazing. Like considering he plays for a far inferior Wales side. So yeah, Dan James would be my pick for that.
So before we get to Dan James shots, what have you made of Pogba's tournament, and do you agree with me that he's been United's best player, or do you have someone else in mind?
Definitely being one of the contenders for being player of the tournament. If France are going to be, France are definitely going above and well beyond the round of 16 and sorry, the quarterfinals. And definitely, see, as Karan was mentioning, N'Golo Kante, with him, actually, he elevates Pogba's game hugely. And if we are looking at, say, the performance that he's been pulling in, say he has a lot of attacking freedom. He is pulling the strings in the midfield as well. If we grant him the similar privilege at United, they will be definitely getting the best out of our record signing. And technically, if you see, Pogba can roam around. He has a lot of other players who bring in a lot of energy in the midfield. He does not. He's not burdened with tracking back a little bit more with whatever responsibilities that United's formation actually puts on him. That's why we are seeing a very different Pogba than what we have seen on United. Although he has done well, as Karan also mentioned during the end end of the season. So he has been the most stellar player, definitely.
Absolutely. And Karan, coming back to you, you said Dan James has been the player of the tournament. So let's speak about Dan James's impact on this Wales side. But then let's also speak about Scott McTominay, who's the other United player we've not spoken about, because both of them are like really pivotal to the way their sides play. But Dan James, like you mentioned, had a really good tournament, and McTominay has been kind of underwhelming for Scotland. So have Scotland in general. But he's been playing in a back three which is not suited to his strengths. Obviously, he's been playing there a lot for Scotland. So, what have you made of James's tournament and McTominay's tournament?
James, I believe, firstly, he's starting in his best position, which is left wing. And the fact that Wales aren't a side that are going to be dominating possession every game, it suits his strength, it suits the game plan. And he has a lot of space to run into, as we saw against the likes of Turkey and Switzerland. He could really run onto the defense. Italy was another beast because they've really found a lot of effective manners to cut down on the goals they're conceding. But in the Swiss and Turkey games, I feel James was a constant threat down the left, and he was winning a lot of fouls in the final third, which is really promising when you have the likes of Ramsey and Bale to take free kicks, and yeah, in general, have players to head the ball in. So yeah, I feel James has been excellent this tournament. And speaking of McTominay, Scotland have really disappointed me because when you look at it, Scotland have a better squad than Wales. They have experience in midfield. They have a solid enough defensive structure. They have the likes of Che Adams and up top. They have arguably the best left back in the world in Andy Robertson. So yeah, they're really disappointed me. And yeah, McTominay isn't best suited to play centre back, but overall, I feel it's good that Scotland got knocked out because McTominay has been playing a lot for us over the course of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And what do you think, Satamitra? How have these two players been? James has obviously had a really really good tournament, and McTominay is not. So, what have you made of the two players?
Right. So, see, Daniel James has been rejuvenated and he has recaptured his confidence as well when he's playing down the left hand side. And he has improved his delivery into the box. And no wonder, like, it's been a surprise that he's been one of the leading chance creators at Euro. When you're looking at, say, there have been some moments of frustration for Wales because end product, is not still there for James. Although his lightning pace makes him, a perpetual threat, that is always there. But uh, I think uh, Wales depends on James's pace and Bale a lot more than what United would be doing, say, on James itself. Coming to McTominay and Scotland, it was very disappointing. McTominay did his best playing in a position that he's not used to. When you're looking at say the goals which Scotland conceded, their XGs were really really minuscule, and most of them were wonder goals. Patrick Schick scored a wonderful goal against them, and Scotland was robust, but they could not deliver the final blows for most of the games that they played in, and that is what was lacking. Um, Apart from that, say they could have done a lot better when it comes to, say, the transitions that they were doing, and they relied a lot more on Robertson for the chances and creating those chances as well.
Absolutely. And before we wind up, I just want a one-word reply from you guys as to who's going to win the Euros. Italy were my dark horses, and they've really surprised me more than I thought they would. So I'm going for them as my winners. Shots, who do you think are going to win the Euros?
Before the tournament began, I did mention Italy, and someone laughed it off. But Mancini has rejuvenated Italy to a huge extent, and they have been really playing well. But I still believe Portugal can come back. I'm supporting them.
That's interesting. And Karan, what about you? Who do you think is going to win?
I'm going to be bold and say Belgium are going to be champions. Lukaku to fire them to the trophy.
That is interesting, and we'll see what happens. But thank you again for joining us, and thanks to my lovely hosts. It's been another great episode of the Champions Internet podcast. And feel free to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We keep sharing a lot of updates about United. We generally discuss a lot about the Euros. We have one person in among our social media team that absolutely despises Gareth Southgate. So if you want some Gareth Southgate rants, you can find that on our social media, especially on our Twitter. But apart from that, thanks for listening and thanks for being such a wonderful audience. And we'll be back soon. Thank you. Bye bye.